Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen snuck essential oils in our food. Now she's paying the price for it. I, 20 male, moved in with my parents for the summer to save money for my job, since the hotel where I work is a 40-minute train ride from my hometown. My sister, who's 29, has been living with them for the past 4 to 5 months because her husband is divorcing her and a judge has decided that she isn't allowed to be around her family for now. My sister fell for an American scam called Young Living that sells essential oils, and in 8 months, she spent around 12,500 euros, which was all of their savings, on buying inventory that she was supposed to be selling. She hid it in the basement of their apartment where they never usually go. Her husband had to repair one of the kids' bikes and found the boxes there. He confronted my sister, and to her credit, she admitted to everything, including secretly mixing the oils in their food. Her husband threw her out and filed for divorce. There was an emergency hearing in which the judge decided that my sister is a danger to their family. Her husband showed records of the insane claims the company makes about their products, and she will only be allowed visitation when she sees a psychiatrist. She has refused to go and is fighting the order. Her husband still allows us to see the kids, and I even babysat them a couple of times when I didn't have exams and was still in the capital. Since I moved here last month, my sister has been a nightmare. The only things she does are cry, scream, and complain, but she doesn't listen to advice, and she has changed lawyers 3 times. I finished my night shift at the hotel, and I was home by 7 a.m. My parents had already gone to work, and my sister was in the living room drinking coffee. As soon as she saw me, she started complaining about how unfair her life is. I just wanted to eat breakfast and go to bed, and she wouldn't even let me go to the kitchen. After the 4th minute, I couldn't take it anymore and shouted at her. I told her she's acting worse than a kid. I told her that she's lucky her husband didn't make a Facebook post or contact her job. She works with classified information to get her fired. She started crying and locked herself in her room. She's still crying and throwing her stuffed animals, the only things left in her room, at the wall. Also, she's late for work since her laptop and phone, which haven't stopped ringing for 30 minutes, are on the living room table. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for all the advice. My parents came home finally and are currently fighting with my sister after I told them what's been going on. My dad gave me the car keys so I can sleep on it since I won't be able to sleep in the house for some time and I have a morning shift tomorrow. To answer some questions, her family is fine. Her husband had them all tested and there was no damage to their livers. The only concern was with their stomachs as they had some kind of wart-like things in them. I don't know the exact details and I'm not planning to ask my brother-in-law for more info, but it cleared up with time and medication without the need for surgery. My sister was never like this before, although she is really competitive. She was first in high school and has won math and physics competitions. She was accepted into the best technical university in our country. When she was ranked 3rd during her university graduation, she threw a tantrum, but we thought that it was because she was getting married and worrying about what master's degree to apply for. My sister isn't religious, and I don't know why she joined the MLM. The only thing she's told us is that she thought she could make a lot of money quickly, and she had people who would buy all her inventory in a couple of months. She has an amazing salary of 3,000 euros a month, which is equivalent to 6,000 in our currency. 2020 and 2021 were great years for her as she was promoted because many people were let go for allowing hacker attacks, and she only has to work 6 hours a day from home. She used 17 types of oils in her and her husband's cooking because she thought they were harmless, but more than half of them weren't safe for human consumption, according to the labels. Her defense was that the labels were just for show and that they were actually safe. She would have gotten visitation, but when the psychiatrist was recommended, my sister got mad and apparently said something like, "This is what happens when a country allows illiterate people to become lawyers." Technically true. I shouldn't have stayed home after she started throwing stuff at her wall. I could have gone to our neighbor's house and slept there. She's a nice lady who's been like family for years. But honestly, I wasn't thinking straight. I slept in the car because there was a lot of screaming and I needed rest. Also, I could never spend half my paycheck to sleep for a night in the hotel where I work. We've tried talking to her calmly, but it doesn't work. After my nap in the car, I talked with my dad who was waiting for me. I will apologize to my sister tomorrow after I finish work because I shouldn't have shouted at her. During the weekend, we will repair the lock to my door. It's been broken for years, but I never had a reason to use it. Starting tomorrow, my sister will be working from my dad's office since he's a notary and can keep an eye on her. She wasn't too happy, But my dad got mad and told her she isn't too old to be punished even though she's 29. I barely stopped myself from laughing. As for her work, my mom is calling her GP to write a note stating that she sprained her ankle and was in the hospital, so all my sister has to do is apologize to her boss for not contacting him. She was also warned that if she behaves like this again, she will be living with our aunt. My mom apparently told my sister that she's disappointed in her and that she failed her as a mother if her kid acts like this at 29. My sister was crushed because she respects my mom a lot. She stopped going to school at 14 to start working in a factory to support the family, and now she's a department head in a clothing factory. But she still refuses to see a psychiatrist. Not the jerk. She needs a reality check now. Many commenters will say you're the jerk for shouting at her, but I'm working on the assumption that you've tried talking to her about it and got nonsensical dream world answers back, mixed with a healthy dose of I'm the victim. It's okay to be frustrated with this behavior. I would apologize for losing your crap, but follow up with as calm a conversation about this as you can both manage. Watching a loved one self-destruct is hard. Am I the jerk for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? For context, a relative of what used to be a close friend of mine, whom we'll call Gary for this story, contracted cancer. I, mid-20s male, was sympathetic and even contributed $100 to a donation pool for their treatment. But Gary came to me one day and took his hat off to reveal a freshly shaven head. He told me that everyone in his family was doing it in support of his relative, and so were a lot of our mutual friends. Then he asked that I get on the bandwagon. I told him I don't want to shave my head because I like my hair. My hair is black, regularly combed and well styled. He said I could just get a wig or something and had actually brought his shaver kit. He was unboxing it when I told him it was not happening. I don't even really know his relative that he's doing this for, so I'm not doing it. End of discussion. He called me a jerk and he left angry. We didn't speak for a week. Then last Saturday, I got invited to a party at another close friend's house. There, I found out that Gary had tried the same thing on several other friends, and only a couple of them actually did shave their heads. Gary wasn't at the party, so I had a blast hanging out, playing video games, and listening to rock music. But I had way too much to drink and I couldn't drive home, so they said I could just sleep upstairs. I passed out on a bed, and it was a blissful sleep until I was shaken awake by another friend who told me Gary had showed up late and they caught him shaving my head while I was asleep. I saw what I looked like in a mirror and I wanted to scream like I was in a horror movie. Gary even shaved off one of my eyebrows. Gary was still there and acting proud of himself, saying, "Now you're gonna have to shave off the rest, just like me." I was furious and I called the cops. When they got there, Gary fully admitted to what he had done to me and even said he was justified. The police didn't seem to think so, as this is classified as a form of assault. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Heck yes." Gary lost it on me while they took him away in handcuffs. I tried getting my hair restyled into something presentable, but there was no saving it, and now I'm bald too. Now a bunch of Gary's family are telling me to drop the charges because Gary was off his meds and didn't mean to do it. I was like, what? Because I never knew he was on meds. But I still refuse to drop the charges. It'll take months to grow my hair back the way it was, but all of the calls and messages from Gary's relatives are starting to get to me. Just about everyone else in our friend group has cut Gary out though, and they say that I'm doing the right thing by not dropping the charges, so now I'm divided. Am I the jerk for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? Edit. I want to make something clear here. So many people have said things like, "Dude, it's just hair." But would they all be saying that if I wasn't a man? What if I was a girl that had hair that took years to grow? Would they be saying the same thing? Sure, hair grows back, but it takes time. If it was something that grew back fast, people would be less inclined to care. But it's not fast. It takes months. And for some who have long hair, years. That's a lot of time wasted growing. And I don't plan on pushing for Gary to go to prison, but I don't plan to drop the charges either. His family already bailed him out. And while I didn't know he was on meds, I knew he had quite the temper and even an entitled attitude at times. One example being a lunch where he wanted us all to combine the checks and split it evenly. He got the most expensive thing on the menu. I got a cheeseburger. When we all said no, Gary went off on us for not being good friends. He's always been a jerk when he doesn't get his way, and I've only known him for like 3 years. This incident was the last straw, not just for me, but for a lot of our other mutual friends as well. As for the charges, I don't want to send Gary to prison, but I would like him to at least get therapy and community service. With the way Gary has acted around me in the past and what he did to me, I actually wonder how long before he gets more violent. I've seen and heard of him getting in fights for less. Edit 2. I've got many comments from people saying, "You're the jerk, he has cancer." If you actually read what I posted, Gary's not the one who has cancer. It's a relative of his that I don't even know. And no, I don't know what kind of cancer. Gary didn't elaborate. He wanted me to shave my head for this person, and when I refused, he left in a tantrum, then shaved my head while I was passed out drunk at a party. Update. Gary was also described as a neckbeard by multiple people, including women he flirted with. He tried to get a married neighbor woman that was older than him to have an affair with her, and then later egged her apartment door when she refused. That one I only learned about a couple of months after my original post. And no, Gary never saw consequences for doing that either. I also learned he stole several video games and DVDs from friends, mooched food and drink out of their fridges, and even went through a period as a squatter for 2 months by refusing to leave a house he had been let into by a former tenant, and the landlord actually paid him to leave. Gary's also an extreme hypocrite that contradicted himself more than a corrupt politician. Gary's family harassed me and tried to make me drop the charges. I not only didn't drop the charges, but I reported the harassment to the police. Only problem is that it didn't stop. In fact, it got worse, mainly from Gary's mother, whom I can see where Gary got his charming personality from. She showed up to my apartment a couple of weeks after the shaving incident to scream at me that I knew nothing about what they were going through, and a little hair wasn't a big deal. I told her my hair was a big deal to me, and what Gary did was inexcusable. Well, that earned me a slap in the face, followed by a swift kick and a few more kicks after I went down. It was all recorded by a camera that I had watching the front door. Landlord wouldn't let me put in a Ring doorbell. One of my neighbors saw her and screamed at her that they're calling the police. Gary's mom ran, and I ended up going to the hospital with minor injuries. Gary's mother got arrested, and I filed a lawsuit against her for attacking me. I saw her in court twice for both her assault on me and the lawsuit I filed for her assault. This woman had taken several self-defense classes over the years, so she knew how to fight. That had the judge consider her a trained individual, and she was sentenced to 6 months in jail, given 2 years probation, and ordered to pay my medical bills. She actually cried to the judge about the money, but he wasn't having it. It took some time to see her in court again for my lawsuit against her, as she was out of jail by then. I was awarded $10,000 for the harassment, emotional damages, and lost work hours, and she had to pay all court and lawyer fees, which she cried about again because she didn't want to pay anything to the man who had ruined her and her son's lives. But she had the money for both court cases because she had no problem paying. But around that time, I heard Gary's relative with cancer had passed. I don't know any details, just that they passed. I admit that was sad, but I never knew this person. But Gary made their condition his hill to die on when he tried to make an example out of me. Gary got some probation and community service for what he did to my hair, and he cut contact with our entire friend group and eventually moved away. Where to? I don't know. I don't care either. As for my hair, well, it grew back just fine. Took nearly half a year to get it back how it was. My boss had me put out of sight for a while, and I was wearing a hat everywhere for at least a month. I did take that $10,000 I got in the lawsuit and combined it with my savings for a down payment on a house, so I've since moved into a much better abode. I also have a girlfriend now that's living with me. It was a bit soon for her to move in, but there were extenuating circumstances. We're making it work, and I'm happy. I, 28 male, cheated on my girlfriend who's 30 of 5 years with my best friend's sister who's 21. I'm still in love with my ex. To be honest, I don't remember much of that night. All I remember is that I woke up with my best friend's sister, ABC, in my bed. I don't even remember her coming to the party. I was living a nightmare of my own making because I loved my girlfriend, now ex, and I didn't know what to do. I told ABC to be quiet and let me think of what to do. I felt crappy and the guilt was killing me, but I was too cowardly to confess. Anyways, 3 weeks later, on Christmas Day, ABC told me that she was now pregnant. I knew that I had to step up. I told my ex that I wanted to break up with her, and I started dating ABC officially. We got engaged on Valentine's Day because ABC told me that it was important to her to be married before having the baby. I know that too because I know my friend's family are very conservative. We had to at least be engaged before breaking the news to them that we were expecting. ABC lost the pregnancy last week, and it's been tough. I've never been so miserable in my life. I feel bad because of what happened and very guilty because I felt relief. I still love my ex, and I can't believe how my life changed because of one drunk mistake. I was supposed to propose to my ex this Valentine's Day, and I even had the ring that I saved for 3 years for. ABC was angry that she didn't get the ring because she knew I was saving for this ring. I wanted to call my ex and confess everything to her. I know I can't have her back, but I want her to at least know that I still love her, but that I needed to do the right thing and atone for my mistake. I really want to do that, but my sister, who knows everything, told me to just let her go. Any advice? Update. Thank you all for reaching out to me. I've been busy. I have confronted my fiancé, ex, and my best friend, her brother, about what happened. That I didn't remember any of it. A lot of it fell into place. I realized that I was taken advantage of. They weren't very understanding, and my friend accused me of using his sister and now wanting an out. I felt then and there that this was the end of the friendship. My sister also thought me weird for feeling I had been used, and however I tried to explain, she couldn't understand my feelings. I've decided not to engage with her in this subject again. When I broke off my engagement, my family wasn't happy about it. They don't know any of the details, but at the same time, they respected my decision, if reluctantly. They loved my ex-fiancé, and I've started therapy, and it's helping. I finally want to say that I've spoken to my ex. I told her everything and how sorry I was for hurting her. I left out the part that I still love her and never really stopped loving her, because I didn't want her to think that I had any other motives than saying I'm sorry. She's the one I hurt the most, and yet she was the one who believed me without any hesitation. Believed everything I told her, and she repeated what many of you who supported me here thought that I had been taken advantage of. She has been my support with the therapy, and she even came to some of my sessions. I don't think she wants me back as a partner, and I won't ask it of her. I'm just glad I have her friendship. She's been my rock and my blanket, and I couldn't ask for better. You cheated on your girlfriend of 5 years. You knocked up the woman you cheated on. She miscarried. Now you're feeling all kinds of guilt and remorse? Because you are guilt-ridden and finally have remorse, you want to get in touch with your ex, the woman you had been in a relationship for 5 years with, to explain? How selfish and self-centered are you? You are wanting to do this to make yourself feel better. Leave her alone already. Why does it sound like the little sister found out she was pregnant and decided to go for the guy she really liked, OP, to get him on the hook for it? Am I wrong in thinking this way? I think romance novels and Reddit may have ruined my thinking when it comes to situations like this. Am I the jerk for having an outburst at my girlfriend's little sister and banning her from staying with us? I've lived with my girlfriend Sarah for 2 years now. Sarah has a 16-year-old sister, Tara. Tara lives with their parents, but Sarah and Tara have a very rocky relationship with their parents. Nothing too bad, but it is toxic nonetheless. For the last 6 months or so, Tara has begun staying over at the apartment that me and Sarah share. I've always been somewhat uncomfortable with this, mainly because it's common for Sarah, who works from home, to let Tara skip school and come spend the day with her. She says it's better than her being on the streets, but I digress. My biggest problem is that Tara trashes the place and has no respect for me. Tara does not like me. I don't know why. Sarah does not know why. She's incredibly disrespectful to me and my things, eats my food despite being told not to on a nearly weekly basis, and borrows things from the apartment with no intent to ever return them. I've been at my wit's end over this for the last month, and I feel like Tara is testing my limits more and more. I've talked to both of them and let them know if something doesn't change soon, I will lose my cool. But every conversation ends with Sarah committing to things that never happen and Tara being non-committal or just disinterested in my feelings. It came to a head Friday. Sarah had gotten off work early and left Tara alone. I came home to the place absolutely trashed. This I could handle. What I could not handle was that Tara had pulled out some of my vinyls to listen to, scratched them up, and just left them out on the ground and the table when she got bored. When I confronted her and asked what happened, she just shrugged her shoulders and said nothing. I absolutely lost it. I told her absolutely what I thought of her, how she was selfish, ungrateful, lazy, and downright unpleasant. I made the comment that if this is how she is at home, I now know why her parents don't want her in their house. I could tell she was taken off guard by my yelling, and the parents' comment caused her to start crying. I kicked her out and told her not to come back. Sarah lost it and we fought. We've been pretty cold since then. She's talking about moving out, but at this point, I'm starting to consider that myself. Last night, however, Sarah finally decided to tell me that Tara tried to run away last year, and she made a deal with her that our apartment could be her safe space whenever she needed, so she didn't run away again. I still don't feel like this makes what she did right, but at the same time, knowing this, I'm starting to feel bad. Not the jerk. Your girlfriend didn't tell you that she was declaring your home a safe space and did nothing to encourage Tara to behave like a guest rather than a squatter. Tara needs more than just a safe space. Safe space doesn't mean you can trash the place. Am I the jerk for asking my parents to leave the parenting to my wife and I, but not doing the same with my in-laws? I, 26 male, have a 3-month-old son with my wife who's 24. He's our first. I have a good relationship with my parents. However, they, especially my mom, have a difficult time respecting my boundaries, and they were a bit overprotective of me growing up. I'm their only kid, so naturally they're going to feel overprotective of me. While I wouldn't go as far as to describe my mom as a helicopter parent, she seemed to have a hard time allowing me to make mistakes. She would want to have a say in anything I was doing and offer advice whether I wanted it or not. When I was little, this was totally understandable, but as I grew up, it became very annoying. When I moved out, I told her that now that I'm grown up, she needs to respect my boundaries as well as accept that I might do certain things differently from how she does. I've requested that she please ask me if I want help or advice with anything, and to please respect my wishes if I say no. She seems to have a very hard time with this. She'll reluctantly say that she'll try to do that, but honestly, I don't think she's making enough effort. We've argued about this many times. It really feels like she doesn't trust me. When my son was born, I asked both of my parents to please leave the parenting up to me and my wife, and if we need help, we'll ask. They agreed, though my mom seemed reluctant. Now, I didn't think it was my place to ask my in-laws to do this because they're her parents and not mine. I told her that if she would like her parents' help or advice with raising our son, it was fine with me, and the decision of how much or how little involvement her parents had was up to her. I'm also more comfortable with my wife's parents because she's the youngest of 4 kids, and therefore they have more experience as parents. They know when it's appropriate to offer help and when they should take a step back. Anyways, today we're having a barbecue for the 4th of July. That was a good one, right? We invited both of our families. It was the first time we've all been in the same room since our wedding. My mom saw how much my in-laws were helping with our son, feeding him, changing him, putting him down for a nap, etc. They're mainly doing this because my wife was busy in the kitchen. My parents took me aside and asked why I wanted my in-laws' help but not theirs. I told her the reasons. Dad took it pretty well. He enjoys being a fun grandpa, but my mom is very hurt. Now I feel bad. I was looking forward to a fun day with our families, but now I'm feeling guilty. My mom basically is just standing around doing nothing and looks hurt. My feelings of wanting her to leave the parenting up to me and my wife haven't changed, but I don't know how to express this without upsetting her. Honestly, I'm kinda wishing everyone would just go home. Am I the jerk for telling my parents to leave the parenting up to me and my wife, yet leaving the decision on how much my in-laws are involved up to my wife because I didn't feel it was my place? It's one thing to say that you want your parents to stay out of any parenting decisions, but it sounds like you've pretty much asked them to not lay their hands on him. Feeding and changing are basic care. Why can't they help with that? It sounds like your mom is trying to stay within the boundaries that you've set, but she's upset that your in-laws don't have the same or any boundaries. I can understand why she's upset. Your kids are your parents' only chance to be grandparents, and you've decided they're not going to get much of a chance to do anything. You complained that your mom was too controlling in your childhood. It seems the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Find a better balance. You're the jerk. I'm going with not the jerk. Some people don't know when to quit, so it's best not to let them get started. It could also be in how the advice is delivered. We tried to let all of our parents do the same things with our son, but it wasn't working out. Some weren't good with safety, some ignored how we wanted things done, etc. It sounds more like your mom doesn't treat you as an adult, or at least struggles to, and your wife's family doesn't have that issue. That's going to cause some problems. I would maybe sit down with your mom and tell her that as she gets better with understanding and respecting your boundaries, you two, 3 with your wife, can reevaluate what you're comfortable with. Management thought they didn't need me. Turns out they decided to try and sue me. Some context. This company wasn't new. They had been around for about a decade before I was hired, and as far as I know, they're still around, but not sure how they're doing now. When I started there, it was only about 60 employees, which 15 to 20 were just hourly wage nobodies like me. I just had the luck of the draw that my team had 4 managers over my area. I was in a role that wasn't supposed to have any management elements, but turns out not long after I started, a few of the management team moved on and I slowly took over some of their responsibilities. After about 6 months, I was starting to feel overworked and I went job hunting. Having listed the responsibility I got with this position got me a management role somewhere else with substantially higher pay. I even got them to let me have a month before starting because I wanted to give a longer notice than 2 weeks to be nice. After I had given my 1-month notice, they were very dismissive of me leaving and acted like it wasn't a big deal. They thought they could spread out what I did among the other management teams. They were so certain that they could handle my job description of responsibilities that they even told me in writing they didn't need a transition period or training and didn't want an exit interview. They even offered me a week early leave with pay because they just thought it was handled and that I was useless. Before that week was out, I was getting calls, texts, and emails from higher-ups and HR trying to tell me that I'm contractually obligated to help them transition and that if I didn't, that they would sue me for breach of contract. Now, the best part of this is that when I was hired, I was simply an hourly employee with no special contract, besides the standard employee agreement for hourly workers. But since I had started doing management-level work, everyone had assumed that I was made to sign the management contract, which had a clause in it that required management to work past their notice if the company requested it for handover training or anything the person was working on that couldn't be finished by anyone else. So within a week, they were frantically trying to get me to help them, and I had already started working with my new company half a week early, so I was ignoring their calls, texts, and emails because I was diving headfirst into my new role. Well, even after the threats, I thought they would have figured out that I didn't sign that contract. About another week later, I was served papers at my new office, and it shocked me honestly. I read over the paperwork, and they were suing me for breach of contract, and it listed a law firm on it, obviously. So I decided to call them up and ask them if they had a signed contract, and I was laughed off the phone by the law office clerk. I realized I shouldn't have called them, and I should have gotten my own lawyer. Just 3 days later, I received a certified letter from the law firm with an official apology for being served and had official documentation showing they dropped the lawsuit. And apparently, they dropped that company as a client for unethical practices. I never got another text, call, or email from anyone at that company or law firm. It felt nice that I shut down a lawsuit with a single question. Karen scams customers, gets busted, and goes to jail. My daughter, Amber, has been challenging since birth. She's never displayed any signs of empathy or remorse and is completely uncaring about anything other than her own wants. We did everything we could when she was growing up: therapy, specialists, and regular contact with experts in her disorder. Amber studied well, but drifted away from us as soon as she got her first job. She kept in touch, but rarely visited. Amber ran a scheme which targeted several elderly, disabled, and vulnerable people and tricked them into giving away money. A few of them ended up passing with nothing left, and Amber got some heavy criminal charges as a result. Amber was found guilty at trial, and ahead of her sentencing next month, the judge denied her bail because she won't be getting anything other than prison time. I visited her yesterday to see how she was coping and to see if she needed anything. Amber excitedly told me that some friends and people who used to work for her had brought her clothes to wear to court. She said she planned to go to her sentencing in red pants and a tailored suit. I was completely shocked. Obviously, she should wear something smart to court, but a tailored suit and designer shoes looks like she's some big businesswoman, and it's sending all the wrong messages and doesn't exactly suggest she's humble or remorseful. Amber's argument was that she's looking at a long sentence no matter what, and so she might as well go out with style. I was sickened, and I made it clear that if she shows up dressed to the nines, she won't be getting any support from me when she's in there or when she comes out. I said she'll never see me again, but she didn't particularly care. My husband sees my point, but he says that I know who and what our daughter is. He says we all know she isn't capable of remorse and that it shouldn't be fair to withdraw support because of that. I'm well aware of that, but she at least has to try. How will it look to the people she scammed if she shows up for sentencing in expensive clothes that she purchased by destroying their finances? The least she can do is look humble and look like she knows what she did was wrong. My husband thinks withholding support is too far. I disagree. She's my daughter and I will always love her, but her crime was horrific, and if she doesn't regret it, the very least she can do is try to look like she does to give comfort to the people she hurt. If she shows up to court in expensive clothes, she will never see or hear from me again. Am I the jerk? The fact it's her clothes that make you want to cut her off and not her behavior is really odd. Am I the jerk for wanting my husband to cancel his trip? My husband, who's 27, has been planning a trip for about 4 years with some close friends. The trip kept being postponed due to some of his friends having family issues, financial issues, and unfortunate world events. My husband is finally going to be able to leave within 2 months. The issue I, 21 female, have with that is that I'm pregnant and he's leaving near my due date. This is my first baby and I don't want to go through childbirth alone. I don't have family other than my husband. My dad has passed and my mom is mentally ill. I just want his support throughout the process, but he's making me feel really bad for asking him to postpone just his trip so that he can be here for his daughter and I. He told me that it's honestly not that big of a deal. He said when he was at the hospital for his son from a previous relationship that the birth only took an hour and that the nurses were very supportive. I also don't want to care for his son after I come home from the hospital alone. He plans on being away for a month and has sole custody. His son goes to his mom's every other weekend, but that's all. Sometimes his mom won't even show up. He hasn't made any plans on where his son is going to go after I come home from the hospital. His sister agreed to take him while I'm in the hospital, but she can't do any longer than that, as she has a full-time job and doesn't want to take too much time off work. He told me I'll be able to handle everything by myself and begged me to drop the issue because he's been planning this for so long and he's really excited to go. He even offered to pay me for all the hardships and told me that women take care of their kids after coming home from the hospital all the time. I do understand that this wasn't exactly planned, and I feel awful about the whole situation. A huge part of me wants to just drop the issue and find a way to deal with everything by myself. I mean, his friends are calling me a jerk and saying that I'm spoiling everyone's fun. Am I the jerk here? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.